Good morning to all of you. I hope you all had a warm cup of coffee. I expected this to be a little bit colder this morning, but I was quite surprised. It's not that cold. It's about 6 or 7 degrees. I joked with LCB yesterday. She said to me that it's going to be very, very cold after yesterday's cloudiness this morning. And I said, I want to go and jog at about 5:30 this morning. And she said, that's not going to happen. It wasn't that cold. But good morning, and I hope that you're feeling much warmer. When I came in and I sat at this table, I was the only one at the table at that time. And one of the colleagues came and said, well, that's the life of a rector. You know, he's sitting alone. There's nobody want to come and join him. But I'm glad that, I don't know whether, Quinton, it was you, whether you went and got a party to join me here, but it's great. I think there's more people. Colleagues, this session is really about socializing again Vision 130. And I had a similar breakfast for the academic heads of department probably about a month or so ago. And we will do another one when we start the second semester. And I'm actually glad that there are quite a lot of you this morning because I know a lot of people are planning to go on a break that starts tomorrow, a sort of a well-deserved break. But the academic heads of department was also well attended. I think it's close to about 80 or 90 people, 90 heads of departments. So I'll talk probably for about 10-15 minutes. And then I'm going to open it up for questions because the whole idea is that this is part of a dialogue. I don't want it only to be a presentation or a talk, and then you listen and you applaud, and then you go and say, well, where's my breakfast? I want this to be engaging, and if there are questions, please ask the questions. And there aren't a wrong question. I think it's important. Sometimes people don't want to ask a question because they feel it's probably maybe a controversial question to ask, or it's not the right question to ask. Just be reassured that there aren't controversial questions and there aren't wrong questions. By asking a question, you also probably, with my response, inform other colleagues that might have had the same question, but they weren't confident and comfortable enough to ask that question. So let's work through the questions if there are questions, and then we try to get also a better understanding of the vision. Now, I want to first start off by saying thank you for the work that you are doing to the University of the Free State. We can't just naturally expect, people would say, you know, you got a job and therefore you need to work and you need to work for an organization and you are actually in the blessed position to have a job, keeping in mind the high unemployment number in South Africa. I don't see it that way. I think it's a two-way, it's a mutual relationship. And the organization, by appointing you, is as blessed as you working for the organization. And sometimes we don't have enough platforms to articulate that and to say thank you for the contribution. Where we are as a university and how we grow and what is the trajectory and how we've been viewed by other organizations, not only other universities in South Africa, but also other organizations in the private sector, in industry and commerce, of the view of the University of the Free State. So, and that can't happen without the people. I often say the people is the university. If you take the people away, we don't have a university. We could have students, but somebody needs to teach and support the students. And if the staff and the people aren't there, then that support wouldn't be possible. So thank you, and I want to say that if you have an opportunity to take a few days off during this break, please do so, because it's important that we also rest, that we also generate some energy. And it seems to me that the work rate, the performance rate, the expectation from organizations are increasing by the year, by the day, and by the month. So I had lots of people that I've spoken to that said they can't believe that you know, that this 6 months. They thought it's already 12 months, the amount of work and frequency and the rate that is happening. So one mustn't underestimate that. And therefore, I do think you need to take a rest and try to recover. But I also would like to indicate to you that I believe, and I'm talking it from my vantage point, that the University of the Free State is at a good footing. We are operating in a good space, and it's hard work to get us to that space. I think last night I had a long discussion still with a journalist to talk on something else, and he indicated to me that he will be visiting, obviously, the University of the Free State during the Vryfees Festival in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time, and he just said he wants to know, you know, what are we doing right there? But that's the sort of question that I often get from other VCs and from the private sector, people visiting the campus. We had a guest speaker at our council summit last week, Friday and Saturday, and because we had the summit out at Amanzi, before he came to Amanzi, he spent some time here on our campus. And his introductory remarks when he addressed council and the executive was that he's just so impressed with the campus. He was talking about the Bloemfontein campus, but I could have taken him to the South campus and the Kwakwa campus. He probably would have the same experience. And he was indicating that this is probably one of the most beautiful campuses in South Africa. So he was talking about the buildings, the design of the buildings, the cleanliness of the campus, the tranquility, all of those things. And the point that he was making is that before trying to unpack the academic project in its totality, one get a sense of what the institution is by just looking at the physical part of the institution. And it's great if people recognize that independently from outside. And I'm not taking credit for that. I think you all need to take credit, right from university estates to those that keep the buildings in place, those that live in the buildings and make sure that it's maintained from a cleanliness perspective, and we can go on and on. So I think at a stability, how they look at the institution, how we contribute to discourse generally, from setting the pace with the Department of Higher Education training at various fronts, not only from university estates. We've got our DVC academic with Francois Strydom today up in Johannesburg, where they talk to a project called Sia Pumalelo, supported by Kresge. We've got the CEO from Kresge also there. And they've been supporting that project across the institutions, across the higher education sector, for probably about 10 years. But the work that's been doing on that project actually comes from the major driving force is the University of the Free State, the work that Francois Strydom and team is doing. And we're leading that. We're leading it to such an extent that we now got a new foundation that we bring on board, the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, together with the Kresge Foundation. We appointed recently a new DVC for research, and he already is making a lot of inroads, try to get to the institutions on the platforms. And we could do all the things that we do and expect people to come to the University of the Free State to see what we're doing. But I think what we're doing now is we're inverting that approach, and to say that we need to be on platforms outside of Bloemfontein, outside of South Africa, talking to what we are doing. And then that's the visibility part that starts to come through, and people start to recognize that. So for me, that is important, and in fact, that's the heart of Vision 130. The heart of Vision 130 talk really about visibility, and if you're visible through the work that you're doing, not being on a platform of attending a conference. That's also visibility, but it is the work that you're going to be talking about, the work that we're engaging. So we often say that the basic, say, bedrock of Vision 130 is really about visibility and impact, because the work that you're doing need to impact your discipline, need to impact the environment, and that's the important thing. Now, just to take you a step or two back, remember, as a university, we are this year 119 years old, and from that experience, the engagement as an institution, the students that have been here, we got over 180,000 alumni across the world. The staff that worked here, all of that experience, we can't just discard. That was the building blocks of the institution. And one would approach that by saying that there were good things that group has done. And there were excellent things that they also have done. But there were also not that good things that were done over that period. And our role is not to throw out the good things, not to throw out the excellent things, but to use that and to reshape or replace or retrofit the not too good things. And I want to start there, because if you haven't got a foundation, then you can't build on it. The second point is that when we started the ITP, the Integrated Transformation Plan, so it's at the end part of 2017, well, it was in fact articulated and conceptualized in the beginning of 2017. But when we implemented that, it was really to get the foundation stronger. And you can remember, we focus on transformation, but the transformation that we focus was to ask the question, how does the University of the Free State, as an institution of higher learning, respond to transformation in a holistic manner? So how do you transform teaching and learning? How do you transform research? How do you transform engaged scholarship or community engagement? How do you transform your policies and the way that we operate as an institution? And how do you actually transform the student environment, engagement with students, understand protest better? How do you look at institutional culture? How do you look at creating an institution which have got a high performance culture? Now, all of that, we spent quite a lot of time. We spent 5 years on it, and we're not completed with it. But it generated a sustainability foundation which is embedded and will continue to be embedded in the DNA of the institution. So that for us was quite important. So we've got the experience over 119 years, and I explained to you how we approach that. We had the ITP that set out the foundation, tried to build it into the DNA. So there was an obvious question then, what happened thereafter? Do we just continue? And I think what we were busy, and everybody should have expected that, is to say, but all of this build-up need to go somewhere. And the and the Vision 130 was then conceptualized to say, now we can actually crack the nut. We can break open. We can become more visible outside of Bloemfontein, outside of the Free State. We can show the world our impact, and we could expose the best kept secrets that we have in the institution to the outside world. And that is Vision 130. But Vision 130 is a little bit more than that, because where we use experience, where we build sustainability, Vision 130 said, well, we now have to use that in a much more concrete manner, a concrete fashion. And what we said is, let us give us a window of opportunity to show our aspiration to achieve on what we built on. And that window is 12 years, will take us to 2034. And in that window of opportunity, we then have to articulate what is exactly what the institution should be in 2034. And for me, that means concreteness. It means that it should be inspirational, but it should also be aspirational, and it should be realistic. And because otherwise, if you don't have that, there is no stretch, there's no necessarily that level of imagination. But if the stretch is unreachable, people will already say, well, we're never going to achieve that, so we're not even going to work towards that. So that's the balance that we needed to achieve. And I'll tell you, and you obviously know what's in Vision 130, but Vision 130 was, we brought voices together, people together, staff, academic, support staff, people, younger voices, senior voices, experienced, not that experienced in higher education. People can think out of the box, people that were very systematic. We all brought that together, and we conceptualized Vision 130. And Vision 130 was finally approved in September last year by Council. It was launched in November, and we started to implement this already in beginning of 2023. So if I zoom into Vision 130, Vision 130, we at the moment about 41,000, 42,000 students. Vision 130 said that we're going to be about 35,000 students in 2034. So we're going to have negative growth. And the negative growth are driven by two things. The one is that we need to make sure that we can provide quality education, an experience that is wonderful to our students, and to have a robust environment on our campuses that we provide to our student cohort. And we want to ensure that quality education are produced by quality staff. And we believe that our infrastructure envelope that we have, together with the technology that we envisage to expand, that's the type of size that we are looking for. But coupled to that is that we believe that we also need to work together with the TVET sector to specifically take the programs that we had been offering that is really in their domain primarily, and work with them to ensure that students with the right aptitude, competency level, approach, ambition goes to that sector as well, and we strengthen that sector. So it's not just saying that in an environment of access, increase of access, growing for higher education, we now have negative growth. We got negative growth to provide that quality that we're looking for, but when we're talking about access to higher education, I actually extend that. It's access to higher education, it's more access to the post-school education. And TVET colleges is a key component. And at the moment, as most of you would know, we've got an inverted pyramid where everybody believed that when they finish matric, they should go to the university. And therefore, our artisans level, all of our vocational training components, that is not growing. And we actually are importing those skills from other countries. And that should not be. So we need to balance that out. So that's the context of the 35,000. But the shape, we're also going to change. And the shape is undergraduate to postgraduate. We want to have a shape more or less of about 30% postgraduate and 70% undergraduate. That means we will have to grow our postgraduate numbers. We have to understand how we're going to do that. We have to attract our students. We have to ensure that the pathway from undergraduate to postgraduate is clear. There is a pull from our undergraduate students into postgraduate space, and we also have to attract postgraduate students from elsewhere in South Africa and elsewhere on the continent. And the way that you can do that is if you have good quality academics. And in fact, that's part of what we are aiming. We want to attract, but also we want to retain good quality academic staff, but also all staff at the University of the Free State. And we said that under the academic cohort, by 2034, we should have about 85% of our academic cohort should have PhDs. And that is achievable. You know, the Faculty of Natural and Agricultural Sciences is already above 70%, probably in the order of about 73% at the moment. So it is achievable. We also said that if we talk about good quality offerings to our students, a good quality education, then we also want to make sure that our heads of departments do have either operating at an associate professor level or professor level. And we also say that over 80%, close to 85% of our heads, academic heads of department, should be at the associate professor level or professor level. We want to create a robust environment of engagement. You know, we often, some employees would say, you know, we in a specific discipline, we attract good quality students from the University of the Free State. But where some of them are challenged is of critical thinking, independent thinking. And we want to move that needle to engage our students more. And I think, you know, there are specific reasons why that's the case, but nothing stops us to change that. So that robust environments of discourse, of discussions, what I expect from our staff, I also expect that from the students. And that is the environment that we're going to build on. And therefore, when we look at our students, we want to make sure that by 2034, more than 65% of our students enter the university with an APS, admission point score, of 35 and higher. And therefore, we need to make sure where we're going to get those staff, those students. What is our recruitment strategies? What is our relationship with our schools? And the other component that is crucial for the University of the Free State is to focus on diversity. Remember, the ITP looked at inclusivity, transformation, and diversity. Now, we looked at diversity probably not the way that we should have, intensity, but we built it into Vision 130. And diversity, the way that we looked at it, is diversity in terms of race, diversity in terms of gender, diversity in terms of ability and disability, diversity in terms of intellectual diversity. And in diversity, it's often important that you don't have an excessive dominant voice. Because if you have got that, diversity is not going to be working for the institution. Because the other voices the marginal voices would just not be heard. And therefore, when we look at our distribution of staff, of students, of intellectual diversity, we would be very critical to look at our students, to look at our staff, to say, well, does it actually give us the diversity profile that we're looking for? And that we try to say, it's also diversity from a social class perspective. For instance, our marginalized groups, the white, colored, and Indian groups, we will have to look at our students coming in to have more of those students coming through, but you will have to have dedicated approaches. Under our African Black, I do think that we should look at the group of social class, and to a certain extent, that is not too much of a challenge for us at the Free State, but we should also look at attracting those students, our African Black cohort, that have got APS scores of 35 and higher. So you will have to have a modified approach to the way in which we recruit. And that for us is quite important. And then, the work that we should be doing should make impact, and therefore partnerships is going to be crucial. We visited one of our Transnet offices or operations here in the Free State, and they are doing a lot of community-related projects. And our discussion, and we will follow that up, would be how do we partner with them? Because we do similar type of projects. Then the impact on our communities in Bloemfontein and probably the larger Free State will be bigger. Because we can work together, we can strengthen, we can think together. And you're not using only Transnet, but there's other businesses as well. So the impact doesn't only come from the work that we're doing in a research perspective. It also comes through our interaction. And partnership, strategic alliances, that will take the university to an impactful university. That for us would be crucial. So what does it actually mean for you and for me? First of all, for us, it means that we will have to integrate far better than we're doing at the moment. So if you look at recruitment, just to make an example, student recruitment services, housing and residence affairs, student academic services, the different faculties, coffee sport, all of them actually should be in one room to say, well, that's the integration, and this is actually what the student would need in an integrated fashion. So that you don't say, well, I'm ending here, I'm handing over to the next one. And I can cite a lot of other examples as well. So that level of integration, but it should start at the top. So when we did the presentation about the implementation of Vision 132 Council on Friday and Saturday, it was actually presented by the 4 DVCs. And when we're talking about integrated resourcing, for instance, it's not only Professor Nardo that will talk about the finances. What does it actually mean for the faculties? When we're talking about growth in postgraduate students, it is about how do we attract the postgraduates from undergraduate to postgraduate, which is Dr. van Staden's pathway engagement. It's about Professor Vasu Reddy's approach. It is about strategic alliances where Dr. Mulapo Kubela came in. And it is about how does the environment look like? Because postgraduate students, postdoctoral fellows might ask different type of accommodation. How would the culture change? It's about student affairs, Themba Slasho. And it is about, ultimately, about how are we going to ensure that this what we say we want to do are done in an integrated way. So the actions is not only dependent on one. There's obviously one person that's going to be accountable for that, but the integration is going to be important. And you will find that a lot of these projects that we're doing is going to ask that level of integration, not only thinking about my division, my unit, my directorate, to think about how do we actually make sure that it's conceptualized across. And we try to do that in the ITP with the cross-functional groups. There were challenges there, but we will have to perfect that. And then the other part, it is about leadership. Now, there's a lot of HODs sitting here, people that are leaders in their own right, in the divisions or subdivisions. And if you don't set the pace, if you don't give guidance, then, and if you don't understand what Vision 130 is about and what it wants to achieve, the people reporting to you is going to find it very difficult. And I think that's the second part that I would like you to think about, to reflect. It is about the words that I use, is to be passionate about Vision 130. And what does it actually mean in your space? It is about owning it. And you can only own something if you understand it and if it makes sense to you. And the only way to make it sense to you would to bring it into your space of understanding. To lead it, which I already said, and then to engage with it. So part of this breakfast, besides giving you a free breakfast this morning, is to want to give you that, want to ask you that commitment, to be passionate, to lead where you are, to own it, and then to make sure that we engage with it, and then to ensure that the staff in your division are at the same level of understanding or a similar level of understanding as what you've got on Vision 130. I do think it's an exciting space that we're in. It's a space that is, for me, aspirational. Most of us, it's probably not going to be here in 2034, but that's even better because we build and we contribute to building towards an institution that we weren't necessarily experiencing, but that we contribute in building a stronger institution for a next generation or next sets of staff and students that hopefully will continue to build on that. So colleagues, thank you very much. And I don't have a cue from Alicia on the breakfast, but when that is ready, but I would suggest that let's open it up for, there's Alicia. No, it's not Alicia, but let's open it up for some questions. I presume that there is a mic around. So we've got VIP here over there. And I might take I'll probably take about 3 or 4 questions and I'll respond to that.
Thank you very much, Prof, and thank you very much for your leadership and your inclusive leadership, that all of us can be part of Vision 130. Okay. I've got a question about the financial sustainability and how Vision 130 could direct and inform us to ensure the financial sustainability of the university. I think having enough resources to realize Vision 130 would be important. And I don't have to say anything about the challenges that we face in the public higher education sector about funding models and funding frameworks. So how could Vision 130 ensure the financial sustainability of the university, but also position us in a way to impact the higher education sector nationwide in that regard?
Okay, thank you, Olivia. Any other questions? You do need another cup of coffee just to wake up a bit. Okay, while we... Oh, there's Lasha. Over here.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Peterson, and thanks, colleagues, for the morning and for your attendance. Just in terms of our measurement of our progress, how are we going to measure as we move and as we move the needle?
Okay, thank you. Right, there's, I'll come to you now, Quentin. There's, well, maybe we'll take Quentin and then I'll come back to you.
Morning, Prof. Thank you. I think I understand the vision much better now. Just to follow up to what Dr. Val has asked now, are we looking at a more focused and quite robust strategy in terms of recruiting self-funding students, especially with the challenges that we have with NSFAS and all of those? So are we looking to specifically focus on that so that we can improve our financial sustainability as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Quentin?
I already got the question, how many residences do I want? Morning, Prof, and
Morning.
really thank you for enlightening us further on Vision 130. The two questions Lasha and the lady at the back asked now, NSFAS is one of my favorite topics, but I won't touch on it, I promise. I'm just wondering, together with what Lasha asked, the milestones, that we don't look past the milestones, so focus on 130 that we don't celebrate the milestones as it come. One of them, the university will be 120 years old next year. That we don't forget that. 121, 125, those are mini milestones also in my environment, which we would want to celebrate with Vision 130 at the background as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take that 4 questions, and perhaps I should respond to Quentin and Lasha's questions, and then I'll move backwards to coming to VPA. So in terms of measurement, the Vision 130 stretches over 12 years, and at 12 years we've broken up in 2 sections of 6 years. So we've got 2 strategies. We've got a strategy 2023 to 2028, and then we've got a strategy 2029 to 2034. And underneath those 2 strategies, we got something that we call annual performance plans. Now, although it's annual, our performance plans run over a 3-year cycle. So you got underneath that annual performance plans that, and it started to zoom into the milestones, the deliverables. So that's the system that we've got to manage that 12-year period. And then we have got a University of the Free State Strategy Implementation Committee. We already have decided how often we're going to meet, what we're going to track, and Durham, together with some of the other parts of the university, have developed key performance indicators that's already in our annual plans. And at the strategy sessions, University Implementation Strategy Committees, we will go through, and each of the DVCs will then have to report on that. What I didn't specify to the DVC is how they arrange their reporting, or extra members, how they arrange their reporting and engagement on those milestones is up to them. The only thing that I wanted is the integration and to make sure there's clarity. So that's the way, and we have got various other things that we're doing that zoom into specific projects. For instance, if you want to look at the financial scenarios of converting an 18% postgraduate to a 30% postgraduate. So your undergraduate's obviously percentage is going to come down. What is the tipping point? How do you manage that? So we've got financial scenario. So there's a team that's specifically focusing on that, and we will meet more regularly. There's a team that will be focusing on that engagement between student recruitment services, marketing and communication, SAS, HRA, Coffee Sport, finance, an integrated team and the faculties. So there are multidisciplinary projects within that is, some of the deliverables are captured in the APP and in the strategy, but we know to get to that deliverable, there's a lot of interventions, systematic interventions that need to be done, and that we projectize in a way to be able to get us there. So, and I do recognize the comment that you made, Quentin, in terms of not forgetting about milestones. So I don't know what Lasha is planning for 120, but there will be a celebration. To come to your point about are we looking at more fee-paying students? Yes, we are, and it's a balance, because you could argue that if you got NSFAS students in your mix of students of your, say, your first years, and the mix of tuition fees, that is also guarantee income for now, because it's part of the fiscus, it's built into the METF budget, and they will have to contribute. But going forward, it might be a challenge. But for now, we want to ensure that there is that mix. Because you could have fee-paying students, but when the economy becomes quite hard, even the fee-paying students have got pressure. And in fact, the missing middle component, when we do that analysis, after COVID, and when we had a lot of pressure on the economy, a large proportion of the missing middle moved into the NSFAS group. So the NSFAS group is even now larger than what it was before. So you have to have a good understanding, and our approach is always to balancing the risk. So we need to understand more fee-paying students, and our proxy of that would be, in one way, if you increase your APS score, you have got a larger probability of attaining or getting a bursary, because you've got a high achievement, and it's easier then for me to talk to industry and private sector and a lot of other people that can talk to that. So that's a balanced approach, but we have got our eye completely focused on that. We at the moment and Vida probably have got those numbers far better, but in 2017, 2018, we had about 58% of our students who were NSFAS. 2021, we had 68%, or 67%, 68%. This year, 2022, last year, this year we got about 67%. But we probably in the order of about 65, 66%. That for me is already too high. We shouldn't go beyond that. And there's a lot of work that we're doing at a national level in new funding models for NSFAS. But and we have, because I was deputy chair of that group nationally, and we presented to cabinet. But as you know, as we move into election next year, political parties don't want to take risks by putting something that could on the table that could impact that stability or perceived stability negatively. But in short, that is a strategy, but it's a more balanced approach. And we obviously, as Vision 130 also say, it is about robust engagement, but built on evidence, and built on information. So VP Financial, we are at the moment very, and when Professor Nadi talked about it, he said, are there any students in the house? But as university, we are financially very stable. One of the things when I arrived was to see how we can build an endowment. And endowment is a function of, do you go out to find money or from alumni and donors that is unencumbered? Or how do you manage your resources in such a way to replenish your current endowment? And I must say, the last 5 years, we've built quite a bit of money in that space. But that's for reserves. And we could, in fact, generate interest on that we add to it. So people often say that's why the rich get richer, is that they've got money that generate interest that could just add on in a cumulative way. But in terms of how do we ensure continuous financial sustainability, we obviously need to be prudent in the way in which we do so, financially responsible, but we need to look at other sources of income as well. And the focus of integrated resourcing is exactly that. So if you have faculties, and because they are the major entities that generate income, we might have some commercial activities on campus, but that income is relatively small compared to what the faculties generate. And it's important that if there are needs in the faculties that support Vision 130, because that's what your question is, that the culture of saying there's a need, let's go to the center, and I'm talking about now the finance of the university, and say, well, to do A, B, and C, according to your vision, hopefully our vision, I need X million. If you don't get X million, I can't execute that. And I said to them, but that's right, we need X million, but the X million is not only going to come from the center. What are you going to do to get to the X million? So I want to push the them and us to us, and I want to say to faculties, you have the ability to generate the income. It would mean that you will be more visible outside, but that's actually what Vision 130 wants you to do. You need to engage with your discipline, and if people feel not confident to do that, we will help you. We will develop you. So we got a training program that started last year, the end of the year before, beginning of last year, where we train a group of academics to engage with the private sector and industry. So we develop them to say that that's where that's your space. And in fact, if you look at government, the fiscus, you could demand from the fiscus, and the fiscus is just going to say there isn't money. So the fiscus would say the liquidity of the economy or economic platform of the country lies in the private sector industry. They got the money, but they're not just going to dish it out. So you need to say, well, this is the value that we contribute. So if we get the integrated resourcing concept right, we can strengthen not only our financial sustainability further from what it is, but we could enhance the deliverables that we wanted to achieve in Vision 130. And then the final point on that, VPA, is I emphasize partnerships. And I made an example. I think there is a colleague here from theology. We were interviewing the Dean of Theology yesterday. And I made an example that, so I'm an engineer, very engaged with the mining industry. And one of the key challenges that the mining industry had, and still have, is that they have got challenges with the community surrounding the mines. Because those communities, rightly or wrongly so, expect that the generation of wealth by the mining industry, by the company, should also spill over to the communities. And it's not only in South Africa, it's the rest of the continent, Southeast Asia, you can look at South America, so you've got that. And one of the CEOs of Anglo Gold Ashanti at that stage talked to other CEOs in the globe and say, well, listen, we should actually get the churches involved. So they went to see the Pope, the Vatican. And to cut a long story short, it became, and then I became involved. I was at that stage moving from Anglo to UCT, and I brought UCT in. And we developed a faith-based program. Thabo Mogopa was part of the program in the business school for the mining industry. And that program is a graduate program, but also a short learning program. are now conducted and presented across the world. Now that for me, the mining companies are now supporting the business school, they're supporting obviously the communities with the programs that we offer. You develop ethical leaders that have a better understanding, community practitioners, and that should have come actually from a faculty of theology. UCT hasn't got a faculty of theology, but that's a faith-based program for the mining industry. And through that partnership, it generates income. You can see if it's multinational globally, you can just imagine the income it generates. So I think partnerships, by embedding ourselves in those partnerships, we can grow the cake. And we must grow the cake. You can't just increase the demands and the cake stay the same. And we need to be innovative to say, how do you grow the cake? And I think that is integrated resourcing going to challenge faculties, but also support staff if they got ideas through partnerships. And there is already happening at the university in various formats where partnership leverage much more income. But I want to make sure that this becomes part of the way in which we do business and then achieving Vision 130. The breakfast is ready. Is there one burning question from anyone before we... Elsaby, yes. Are you waiting for...
Thanks, Prof. I'll be quick.
Is that on?
Yes, it's on.
Okay.
I'm very excited about Vision 130 because I'm not only a staff member, but I will be a parent of a student in less than 2 years' time. I want to know, how are we going to ensure that Vision 130 is carried forward, looking at changes in the senior management over the next few years and so on. How will we ensure that?
Yeah. So that is the last burning question. So one of the most important commitments that I've made to our team, but also to council, is to ensure that the level of appointments that we are making are aligned with the culture of the university, are aligned with the commitment of Vision 130, and have got the ability to be here for another, I would say, a generation cycle of executives in senior leadership. So in total, we've got 19 appointments selection committees that's operating at the moment. And the reason is not that's a bad thing, is that I think we had a very stable cohort of staff, which mean that we could have delivered on the ITP and so on. But some of those staff are now coming to retirement, they finish their cycle, and there's also a slow turnover. So I'm certainly from my side, but also a lot of other people are spending a lot of time in the selection committees to ensure that that's exactly what we pull through. So if I have to leave the university, or some of the other executives leave the university, that there's a stable, renewed cohort at an executive level, at the senior leadership level. And the senior leadership level are the deans, the senior directors, together with the executive. And that's a personal commitment that I've made. So I spent a lot of time, and the selection committee, we were trying to analyze the amount of time that you spend on a selection committee, is to get the advert right, is then to advertise, is then to headhunt. And I can spend about 2 hours or so just on the headhunting, talking to people elsewhere in the system, encourage them to apply. That is even before the process started. Then the process started of shortlisting. That could be also 2 or 3 hours. Then the interviews, depending on how the shortlist is, was another half a day. And in the case of the deans, it's not only the interviews, it's also the presentation to the faculties. That's also almost 2 or 3 hours. So that's for one. And then you have to present to the ECS, to plenary senate, to council. That's the cycle of one senior appointment. And if you add that up, so you need to make sure that that is robustly done. That's a commitment, and I can reassure you that I want to make sure that there's a continual leadership, not that should think as what I think or the others, but should continue the intent of Vision 130 and bring different strengths to the table. Thank you. Alicia, how does the breakfast work? Okay, so it's a buffet. You go, and there is still some coffee for those that want coffee. Okay, good. Colleagues, thank you very much for your time. And again, I know you all have work pressures, but try to enjoy the breakfast. And then I want to wish you well for the rest of the day, and also well if you're going to take a few days off. Thank you.